The settings for a web form contain 6 different categories. At first glance, it really does look like an overwhelming amount of options. However, like with form elements, most of them are very niche. There is one useful option in each section of these settings, so we'll be going over those specifically. For the others, you likely won't need to make any changes to them, so we won't be going over them in this video. Under General, our useful option is the web form URL Alias, and this is how we change our form's URL. If I were to go to the live version of this form, you can see that it has the automatic URL of /form/my-new-form. Now if we scroll down to the option for web form URL alias, we can see that we have a field here where we can enter in something different. In a lot of cases, the automatic URL is going to be completely fine for your purposes. However, if you need to change this URL to be something that's easier for people to memorize or easier for organizational purposes, we can make that change by going to the web form URL alias field. In here, we can type in whatever we want the information to be after the main part of the URL, and we can do that by just typing / followed by whatever we're interested in having. So for this example, we can do /undergrad /apply. And now when we hit save here and go over to our live form and refresh, we can see that the URL now says /undergrad /apply. Now for the next tab, we're going to go over to form. The useful field that we're going to be looking at here in the form tab is form status. Now we touched on this a little bit when we first built a form, but now we see an extra option called scheduled. Take a look at these 3 options and see which one best fits the situation that your web form is currently in. If you're currently accepting submissions for your web form, you would want to have the open option selected. If you are currently not accepting submissions, you would make sure that you have closed selected. And if you wanted to automatically set when you have your web form open and closed, you would choose scheduled and then make the adjustments here as needed. Now we'll actually skip over the submissions tab for now because we'll be covering that a little bit more in the next video. So now we'll go over to the confirmation tab. The confirmation section is where we can add a message after a user submits the form. Scrolling down, you can see I have 2 important fields here, the confirmation title and the confirmation message. For our example here, I could make the title just say received. And I can also add a short message in the confirmation message just to let users know that the form has been submitted successfully. So in here, I'll just type, "Thank you. Your submission has been recorded." You could also add bits of information here like contact information or really whatever is necessary for your web form. So I'll go ahead and hit save here right now. Next, we're going to go over to the emails and handlers section. The emails and handlers section allows us to add automatic emails that go out after a form has been submitted. I'll go ahead and click this add email button, which will bring up a bar on the side. And you can see here that there's a title option. The reason that we have a title option for this is because you can add multiple emails to the emails and handlers section. So this just allows you to title what this email is going out to. So for this example, we'll say email to site admins. Making sure that this title is accurate to who it's being sent to will make things a lot easier for organization down the line. Next, we have to decide where this email is going to go to, so we can scroll down to the Send To section. By default, you'll see that the To email section says site:\mail, and this is your organization's email address. However, there are a couple different options that you could use in here to serve different purposes. So say, for example, once somebody has submitted a form, you wanted to send them a confirmation email so that they were aware that their form was submitted properly. Well, as long as you have an element within your form itself that has an email prompt, you could do that. So the form that we're using right now has an email form. It's the OSU email element. If I selected that, it would default to that email that was submitted by the user when they submitted their form, and they would get a confirmation email once this was set up. Another option might be if you just have a custom email address that isn't associated with the organization, you could go to custom to email address, enter that email address in here, and it would get sent to that instead. So play around with the send to section. If you have a situation where you need an email to go to once the form is submitted, there's likely a solution for you. Next is the send from section. Now we do not want to change any information on the send from section. OCIO does not let our website send from anywhere else other than the organizational email address. This is for security purposes, so please do not change this or your form will break. Finally, we'll scroll down to the message section. By default, it brings in the date and the questions and answers for everything on the form. However, if we wanted to change this up and create something that was a little unique, we would be able to do this by going to the body dropdown and selecting custom body. And you might notice that after we clicked that nothing appeared. This is just a bug with Drupal 8. The solution is to go back to default and then go back to custom again, and then you'll see the option to actually edit the text. For this case, I'm going to leave everything as default, and then we'll hit save at the bottom here. The final tab is the Access tab. And Access controls who can see the results of the form. If a viewer has form viewer permission, which is something that ASC Web Services can assign, they can be added to this interface. All you need to do is scroll down to the bottom, click on the View Any Submissions tab, and then start typing a name into this user's field. So I will type in my name as an example, and I'll click on the name that pops up. If you had several users that you wanted to add at one time, you could do so by adding a comma after the first one and starting the second. Once that's done, we can scroll down to the bottom, click Save, and now those users will have access to view all of the submissions for this web form, provided that they have the form viewer role first. Otherwise, this won't do anything to allow them to see the submissions.